Welcome to the next edition of today's show. Today we have a very experienced man, a man of his own capacity who has a lot of laurels to his credit. And if you are listening to us or watching us today, let's make sure that you will not leave this interview room or you will not watch us and go without an experience. So the man we have today is a doctor. He is Dr. Gubiani. He has such experience that most of us wish to have. And I just want to run you through a little bit of his experience. So, Doctor is a renowned speaker at investment, finance, retail, technology, among other forums. Now, he also has served as a judge at a startup and business forum and contests. He's a president of management associations. He's a board member and a non-executive director in several companies. I think his laurels is something that we all have to take something from. And so today I am honored and privileged to welcome on board Dr. Gubiani. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Prince. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine, and thank you for inviting me here.
All right. Yes, so I have given a brief background to our viewers today, but I think it would be nice if they hear from you, the horse's own mouth, as to some of your experiences, then we carry on the interview from there.
Yes, sure. So I hope my experiences deliver some kind of inspirational value to people today. But I am a very firm believer that whatever we become in our career or in life, uh, a lot is attributed to our upbringing, and the environment in which we grow up, and the traits and personality that we build during the younger years of our life, right? And those are the survival instincts, and those are the various risk-taking ability and stuff which we form in the younger years, right? And then we bring them into practice. They are hidden somewhere, and we bring them into practice as and when the situation requires that to happen. So, my background, I would go to the year 1947 when my original roots are from India. When the British, after ruling India for about 100 years, left the country, and which was an undivided India, that part was broken down during the partition, right? And my grandfathers were landlords who used to live in that part of undivided India, which today is no longer a part of that country, and they were all driven away. They used to, that time you didn't have banks, and they used to have a lot of gold dug in the ground, and literally they had to run away from there with nothing, and they came you know and they came as refugees in the northern part of India, where they had to rebuild and restart a career from zero, right?
Oh.
And why I say that is because that becomes a source of inspiration. And I call my father, who was only 3 years old at that point of time, when he had seen on the all this bloodshed and had to move and restart from scratch. He's an inspiration for me because he grew up studying under the street lights, right? With no amenities, no facilities, right? And then right after his schooling, and during an emergency war commission, he actually joined the Air Force and became a pilot, right? For the Air Force, and I grew up in that situation. He served for about 30 years, had an impeccable record of accident-free flying, of military aircrafts. And and what we had to do was tag along with him. So every 3 years, and India is a huge country. 26 states. Every state you go is a different food, a different culture, a different language, right?
Well, that's nice. That's nice. Oh,
Exactly.
I think from your line of intro, I can see that your father has really played a massive role in who you are today. you know.
Yes, and exactly. And so what happened is this kind of his career made us every 3 years you move from one place to another place. So which means that every 3 years you are uprooted from
Wow.
your friends. You pack your bags again. You move to a new location, and you have to again start from building new friends, new acquaintances, learning
Wow.
about the language, culture. And why I say
Wow.
this played a very important role, because this brought in huge amount of adaptability and flexibility,
Oh,
right?
okay.
You
Okay.
know, today we think a lot when we have to move our kids from one school to another school in the same
Exactly.
city, and we say they would go through so much of disruption,
Exactly.
right? And we give them that protected environment, but this came naturally. So I
Okay.
think that brought in a good amount of certain skills which would I'd never realized, but which would help at some stage later in life.
That's
Yeah.
nice. That's nice. So I
Mhm.
think you see, from the way you are narrating, my viewers or the viewers will need a lot more. So we will take our time to break it down. So thank you for that intro. It's an interesting one. But looking at your resume, you have a lot of experience, which you have stated, especially even with the aspect of moving from one end to the other. You gain much experience in terms of living with people, all manner of people. And I think that is one thing that we all need to be successful. Now, looking at your education, I can see from what we have, you've studied IMD in Switzerland, if
Yes.
I get right, and you were ranked the number one. That's a rank number one for executive education.
True.
That's one. And you also believe you attended Symbiosis University, and one of the top business schools. That's also on your profile. And what catches me is you also have been to the National Defense Academy as one of the top military training institute. Now, can you help us here? I know a lot of my viewers will be like, how can someone who have been to more like an educational branched into business and then also branched into the military or air force in that regard? Can you tell us how did you get that blend for the
So so it, so
purpose of our
yeah.
youth?
Yeah. So it's the other way around. And again, I will attribute a lot of also my education part to my father, because, like I mentioned to you, he joined the Air Force right after school. But while having served for the Air Force in 30 years, he also earned his degree, law degree. He did double masters, and he did several other courses like hotel management and this and that. So he never stopped studying.
Oh.
But his profession never required him to study all that, because this was completely he was a pilot. He didn't have to study law or all these things, uh, but he had this passion, and it comes from there. So again, coming back, I have seen him flying all throughout, and I thought I want to become a better pilot than him. I want to become a fighter pilot, with the flying the latest birds, the latest machines, right?
Wow.
And I worked hard uh,
That's good.
right after my school to get into this topmost military training academy, which is a very rigorous written exam, followed by 5 days of an interview process, and then
Okay.
again a very stringent medical test,
Okay.
specifically when you are applying for a fighter pilot, because there are various medical conditions you should qualify through. Having
Okay.
done all that, I got selected for this prestigious military academy, which is the National Defense Academy,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
centuries old. And that I underwent 3 years of armed forces officers training to become an armed forces officer, to serve, and I was following my dream of flying fighter jets. So
Wow.
that's how I went into that
So,
part.
from your narration, then I can believe that you have probably uh, flew a fighter jet before. If that's what I'm getting from you, have you been or you are now in the process?
No, no. So at that stage, yes, these were the trainer jets, yeah, the jet aircrafts. However, unfortunately, I could never continue that career because we, in fact, had a very unfortunate event in our family where my very close first cousin, who was just about 6 months senior to me in the academy, passed away while training.
Wow.
And that was a huge, me being the only son of my parent, there was a huge setback for my mother. And
Oh,
and she would never accept the fact that I go and pursue a career which is very, very risky and dangerous.
okay.
um, in fact, and I was under tremendous pressure to look at an alternate career and alternate option.
All
and
right.
and giving those that regard to my mother, I decided, okay, I am now unable, maybe I'm not able to fly on the air, but I will fly on the ground.
No, that's great. That's great.
Okay.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching us, I have Doctor here with me. He's taking us through the early stages of his life and where he has come. So if you just joined us, this is Dr. Anurag Gugliani. He has a PhD in entrepreneurial studies, an MBA social leadership. He also has an MBA in finance marketing. He had his bachelor's in economics and engineering. And the most interesting aspect is that he has flew as a pilot as part of the Armed Forces Officers Training Program. And so you have actually joined us today for his experience. We will be taking a quick break so that when we come back, Doctor is really going to delve down as to how he became who he is today. I know many of you might be picking cues from him because he's got what most of us are looking for. So let's go for a quick commercial break, and then Doctor will take us through his experience. Thank you very much. Welcome back, viewers. You are welcome to today's edition of the show. We have Dr. Gugliani still here with us, and he started giving us a background of who he is with an experience in engineering, business, and as a pilot. So this section, we are going to look at his area of expertise. I know that most of the youth listening to us, this is actually one of the things we are looking at, especially with where we see the world today. And so, Doctor, um, from what we have, you have your one of your strategic areas has to do with global expansion. You have I don't know if you can tell us something about that. One of your experiences is that it's about global expansion, then operational turnaround and digital transformation. So can you take us through that? How
Okay.
you have been able to rise up in that section?
Right. So before I go into that, yes, I just want to dwell a little bit on the education part, because I think it's extremely important that to build yourself and to reach a role like that. I believe learning should be constant in life, and learning should never stop. And education is a very strong attribute which everybody, and that's why starting from my electronics engineering, followed by masters in finance and marketing, and then executive MBA from IMD Switzerland, which is ranked neck to neck with Harvard in executive education. And then I earned my doctorate. So I've been studying all throughout. I study today also, and I believe that every person I meet is in some form superior than me, because I learn from him, right? At whatever level that person may be, everybody teaches me something. And so why I talked about that education, because that helped me in doing what I am doing today. So about quarter of a century ago, I migrated to the Gulf region. right? Gulf region, where the oil was discovered, and gas, and a huge amount of wealth ready to be worked upon. But this region didn't produce anything of its own, right? All this region had to do was to bring in products and services from other parts of the globe, right? And feed, not only feed the development of the countries here, but also in one way create them as icons for the entire Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, right? So I lived about 6 years each in UAE, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman. And I am a
Okay.
permanent resident of Oman as well. And
Okay.
and what I was doing in those years was working for some of the largest and the wealthiest family business groups at sea levels, heading them, and
Okay.
working in. I myself worked in about 25 different industries, and
Wow.
my what I had to do was, one, obviously maximize the return of investment for the shareholders, but in that same process, create employment opportunities for thousands of people, as well as expand the business globally to about 23 different countries in this region, which I talked about is Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. So anything from India to Turkey. Um,
Okay.
right. So and that's what I facilitated for these businesses, because I am a very strong believer that global expansion primarily means diversification of risk for businesses, right?
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
just like we would not put our personal finances only in one investment, right?
Yeah,
We
sure.
will diversify it in bonds, property, fixed deposits, XYZ. Similarly, businesses should put themselves into different countries with different risk portfolios, so that if one country is going down at a particular stage, the other one can still sustain. So, for
Okay.
example, during the current COVID situation,
Yeah.
right? Not all countries have gone through the same problem, or not all countries have taken that much of time to recover. So if you also had presence in those countries which recovered faster, you could outsource your work to them. You could still manage your cash flows and various other things. So that's how global expansion plays a very strong role.
Wow. Okay. So the conversation is getting interesting, and I'm picking cues from here, especially with this COVID era. Research has shown, especially in Africa, that there is an increase in youth entrepreneurship. All right. Now, one experience I've seen from your resume is that you have been turning companies around and units around. Now, what advice are you going to give the young entrepreneur who, for some reasons, have been affected by this whole pandemic, especially in this current season, with your expertise? I know you might have come about a lot of up and downs. What would be your advice?
Okay. So before I give an advice there, I would one explain a background of why I can first qualify for giving an advice, because what I do right now is I'm a partner at a global consulting firm, and I primarily define the strategies the for organizations. I do the complete operational transformation and turnaround of organizations, undertake the advisory board member and interim management roles. I also do the digital transformation and take part of the cyber security or the technology risk for organizations, right? And um, why I got into this consulting practices, because I realized that some of the biggest firms in consulting, primarily the big fours, for example, have a lot of good quality people they hire with a lot of solid academic knowledge. But what is somehow missing is the hands-on operational knowledge, which can actually give a connect when you talk to businesses or with people who have problem, and specifically the SMEs, the small and medium enterprise businesses who cannot afford these large giants, right? But they need the hand holding. They have all the right to expand. They have all the right to have better profitability, better businesses, right? So what I speak comes from my experience of
Experience.
having actually made my hands dirty in 25 different
Ah,
industries, and having helped organizations go through this transformation process, with a single mindset of committed growth story and creating employment opportunities for the larger market, and improving everybody's life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so the question which you really asked me was more pertaining to the also to the youth, right?
Yes.
So you see, I'm a very strong advocate of youth, and when I say youth, I'm talking about millennials. I'm talking about Generation Z, X, Y, whatever we may call it, because they are the future. They are the future. Now we have a very typical issue right now, that in organization, if you have a CEO who is in his 50s, and then you have a millennial or a Generation X, you already have a 20 years gap
Yeah.
between that age. And 20 years gap, no, you cannot understand each other,
Exactly.
because the
Exactly.
thought process of the younger generation is very different. They want their freedom, they want to think independently, they don't want to be bound by various stringent conditions, but they will deliver.
Hmm.
They will
Yeah.
deliver, but they will deliver in a different style. And that's why I tell the boards and I tell the C levels that it's now time for you to learn, not to teach the younger generation. You got to learn how to adapt to work with them.
Hmm. Hmm. That's actually gives a pivot to the question, because you see a lot of these entrepreneurs that are coming up. When I say, I mean the young African entrepreneur. When we start, we most of them look at going direct to international, right? So I don't know, but you have actually been on the field. I'm sure before you got to these countries, you started within. Now, how can the 21st century young entrepreneur who is starting up a business can actually work within? I mean, what advice would you give before we start looking at going global?
See, obviously, first thing is that within your own country, where on the basis of which you developed your business model, it should become a 2 year success model, right?
Mhm.
You don't start expanding unless you have tasted the fruit for what you created, because an expansion also means changing and tweaking the business model a little bit, right? Like that tagline, think globally, act locally, right? So you will have to do local adaptation to the culture, to the needs, everything. But your core, 60% of your core business model will remain the same, and you have to become a master in that before you go for expansion. Now, you see what is worries me a lot is, if you really look at startups, 90% of the startups fail. These are the statistics, and it is so highly demotivating for those youngsters when they know that they only have 10% chance to succeed. And why it fails? Because businesses are learned over a period of time, and our failures teach us more than our successes, right?
Okay.
So someone who's gone through the ups and downs of the various challenges which you have seen in businesses, and situations like, for example, the current COVID situation, or the previous crisis 7 years back or prior to that, someone who's gone through that knows how to steer through, right?
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and has learned those. Now, unfortunately, probably the younger guys may not have had that kind of an exposure, right? But
Yeah.
you can't build a business model only thinking that everything will go right all the time.
Mhm.
Things will go bad, and which is why it's why and that where role like people like me comes in, is because
Okay.
we can do that hand holding, right? You
Okay.
don't need to rewrite the story again. So the out of the 10% of the startups I'm talking about which succeed, 90% of them succeed because they have a backing of someone who is in their 40s as a
Okay.
co-founder, or as a support mechanism in hand holding that founder in taking his idea to market, right? And creating
Yeah.
a profitable model. Because you know what happens, if I am that youngster and I have a brilliant idea, But the day I start my business, I get so much involved in operational and day-to-day salary payouts, operational expenses, XYZ, that I lose my edge over my technology or what I created as my idea.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. So, but you see, what it's good we actually delving into the youth entrepreneurship aspect because um, you know the economy that we always talk about has to do with the ability of these young people to be productive. Now, you from your experience, I've seen that you're an influencer when it comes to policy decisions. You know, a lot of these youths also operate within a system. Now, looking at the African system, for instance, now everything is more or less like centralized. Okay. Now, what advice would you give, especially to the leaders, with your experience, the countries that you've been able to work with, and what you have gained? What kind of policy advice would you give to help make youth entrepreneurship a lot more effective and efficient?
See, one of the advice I give to all the board and shareholders and board members is necessarily bring youth into the board. A board does not have to have only gray-haired people or experienced people, right? Yeah, two strong components of board have to be women as well as youth, because and they have to be given uh, their rights to speak up, and their ideas have to be accepted by the board members, because these different thinking is required for going into the future. What does the future look like? Just like today we are doing this interview over a technology forum, we wouldn't have thought about doing this 3 months back, right? We would
That's
have
great.
yeah. so
That's
so so
great.
so technology is driving a lot of stuff, and new brilliant ideas are emerging day after day. There are so many opportunities in the market to disrupt the way things are happening, and again, majority of the people who are bringing these ideas to the market are the youth.
You.
The reason being, one of the biggest aspect of success is, I believe, something I call the risk taking ability of an individual,
Okay.
right? Like if you really see success stories of some of the biggest entrepreneurs, many of them have been college dropouts. uh, why? Because why are they successful? Because they could take risk of any sort without having to lose anything, right?
No. Yeah.
Because when you don't have anything to lose, your risk taking ability is at highest, and which is
That's
why what I'm trying to say here is that I think youth in the early part of their career have the highest risk taking ability, because at that stage they don't have a family, they don't have all those expenses, and so they should try and give at least 2 years of their life in working towards a business idea or something which they think they can make a difference to the world.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So if you are still watching the interview with me and Dr. Gugliani, and he's actually giving us his experience with regards to how youth entrepreneurship can be pushed forward at this very session. Now, Doctor, if you just joined us, Dr. Gugliani has a vast experience when it comes to entrepreneurship, engineering. He's also had experience in flying, which I am most interested in because I one day want to be a, a, an Air Force man. Doc, I believe that it's not too late for me, right?
Uh, Nothing in life is ever too late.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can do that. So, if you heard that, nothing in life is ever too late. So, we will take a quick commercial break. And when we come, we will take the final part of the interview. Stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are still on the show with me and Dr. Gubiani. Before we left off, Doctor started with a brief introduction of himself. He's been telling us his experience as an engineer, as an entrepreneur, as a flight or as someone who has been in the Air Force before. He has also a vast experience when it comes to business development and when it comes to taking businesses across. Now, on this final and last session of the conversation, we want Doctor to delve deep into his view on African market when it comes to business. How we can take the African business global. So, Doctor, our viewers would like to know, with your experience, how can Africa, when it comes to Africa business or when it comes to African market, how do you see it before I give the next question?
See, I think Africa is one continent where anybody should be able to bet blindly. You are talking about 16% of the world population, right? And you're
That's
talking
true.
about extremely young and very, very hardworking, set of individuals in this continent. So basically, I see it as a hotbed for innovation, technology, and invention. And
Okay.
you have the market size, and you have the market size to produce stuff in a cost-effective manner, in an efficient manner, right? Um, I think what I would say, definitely we know that the big five wealth markets in Africa are definitely Nigeria, Kenya, and also towards North Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and South Africa, right? So, and then you have countries like Mauritius, Ghana, Rwanda, and Uganda, which are the best performing countries, and they are anticipated to double their wealth over the next decade.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you have safe countries like Mauritius, which are thriving on the financial sector, rising property prices, wealthy immigrants coming into that country. Even South Africa or Tanzania, Cote d'Ivoire, they are all expected to have a moderate wealth growth, around 30% in the coming decade. So I think one thing which Africa can do, looking at the young population, you see, start, and this many countries are actually, very few countries are even focusing on this. Start teaching entrepreneurship at school level. You see, people
Okay.
start talking about entrepreneurship post having done their college degree. That's too late.
Okay.
That's really too late. In fact, you'll be surprised that during COVID, I have seen school kids and students having started online, even baking things like cookies, this, that, started doing something on an online portal, which is an exposure to entrepreneurship. So, if in the high school, some exposure to entrepreneur, because all the time we cannot teach people and students only to become doctors, engineers, and MBAs, right? We also need to teach them in school on how to manage businesses, right?
Exactly.
If we give them that exposure at school and during the college, we've already planted the seed, because one entrepreneur, one job seeker can create job only for himself, but one entrepreneur can create jobs for several people.
All right. That's right.
and
That's
that
right.
and that is what grows the economy rapidly, right? So and entrepreneurship doesn't only mean startups. This is again a misnomer. Doesn't mean that you have to come up with a new disruption or a new idea to do a startup. Entrepreneurship also happens through acquisition, right? Acquisition basically means that someone somewhere needs an assistance from somebody else, right? And maybe his business is, he doesn't have children, his business somebody else has to take over. You can approach banks can help facilitate an acquisition process. A small business, I'm saying, a small idea, I'm talking about entrepreneurship for youth. I'm not talking about large scale joint ventures, mergers, acquisition, and all that kind of stuff.
No.
So
Yes.
there are various forms in which entrepreneurship can be obtained, and do this cross border. So a lot of organizations from the other parts of the world want to come into Africa,
Yeah.
right? And for them, if there is a local business which has ground knowledge, which has feet on the ground, right? and they bring in their technology and their expertise into that. It's a very easy marriage. It's a good match. And similarly, entrepreneurs and businesses from Africa wanting to go to other parts of the world, because this is something which I have been facilitating for years. This cross-border expansion in the most economical and cost-efficient manner, right? It's not
Yeah.
about going there, building up offices, setting up, hiring several people. No, it doesn't work like that. The global
Yeah.
expansion can happen at a fraction of a cost and really make your organization. For startups, it's extremely important to go global because they can then get funded from
Yeah.
a global resource rather than a local resource.
No, I wouldn't cut you. I wouldn't cut you. But you see, a lot of, especially this time round, the pandemic, as we see, is having a toll on a lot of businesses globally, right? And I don't know if you have an advice, not only for the startups, but for already existing businesses. How do you think we can take advantage of this pandemic and still make business go global? Your view.
So really, if you look at the statistics, not all businesses are going down. Several businesses have gone up. Several businesses have gone up. And businesses who have very quickly, and I'm talking about my own business, right? In the consulting business, for the last 3 months have been the highest ever for us in 7 years. Whether it is in terms of collection or in new business booking or billing, they've all been higher. But the products that we have sold in the last 3 months have never been sold in the past. So you had to define new products. The ticket size was much smaller, right? The volume was larger, but you had to become very fast in your action of creating services and products which are which appeal to the for this pandemic era. There were let's look at supermarkets, or stores. They were all their traditional stores. They never went online. But the moment this pandemic hit, everybody started building up an e-commerce portal. The people who did it quicker, who adopted digital marketing, who reached out to consumers, had everything to gain. Their business never suffered because people still needed. People were staying at home. They were not eating outside. So you need more grocery. You need all the stuff in house. Who gives it to you? So somebody could bring a delivery method. So adaptability to change has helped. Always it is the survival of the fittest. So some businesses may not wade through these tough times, and some will find them as huge opportunities.
Okay. All right. Okay, Doc. I have just about two more. Then we go two more questions. Before this interview, I sampled out questions from some young entrepreneurs, and I had one young man from Ghana who said, "Ask doctor for me." Uh, the question says is that we are always encouraging the youth to go into entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship too has to do with money. So ask doctor for me, is it always that one needs money to start a business? So this question is coming in from Ghana, a young entrepreneur in Ghana.
See, if this question was asked several years back, I would have said yes. But today, money comes automatically to you if you have an idea which you can and you are confident enough to express and create a business model around that idea and convince a few people. You have to be confident because since I am a judge at various startup contests and business contests, I come across several of these individuals. But those who have not done their homework, who've not done their research, right, find it very difficult to answer some of the very tricky questions. Now, the questions which these judges are putting across are coming from experience, like what kind of teams they have, what is their plan, this and that. So if that part you can do, funding will come to you. Money will come to you to take your business forward. But if you don't even do that, then you can't really expect it to come in. So something or other you have to have. Either you have money, then you take all the risk yourself when you build. But if you want to use somebody else's money, then you have to be very, very strong in what you are planning to bring up to the market.
Okay, that's great. I believe that he's watching us as we speak, and there goes his answer. You don't necessarily need money to start a
Yeah.
business. Doctor
Yeah.
says that. All right. So you are still watching us. I am having a conversation with Dr. Gubiani. He's an experienced man who has been in the field of business for a very long time. He has shaped a lot of business, been on several continents, and grew a lot of entrepreneurs. Now, Doctor, I believe that the time might not give us time, enough space to talk more, but what can you leave for our viewers? Somebody who missed all the earlier parts but just joined in. What is your message to them?
So my message, if you are in the younger stage of your life, younger part of your life, invest in yourself, invest in building up certain personality traits. Education will give you knowledge, but personality traits are built on your social networking, of interacting with people. Don't underestimate the value of constant networking and talking to people all across the globe. If you are a bit shy, find out ways and means of how you can best do that and reach out. But social networking today has gives you huge immense power of meeting people across the globe. Invest on learning digital marketing, right? Whether you are a youngster or you are a business in an advanced stage, if you don't use digital marketing techniques, if you don't use the latest technology, which is and it's a fraction of a cost, and your message can go across the globe. Suddenly anything can trigger your business to a very very large volume. So you got to think differently on how you market yourself. Third, I would say start learning about entrepreneurship early in your career, early in your life. But there is never too late for learning. Like I said, everybody can learn at any given point of time now with all online resources available.
Yeah.
But why I say that is because if you want to become an entrepreneur, try as early as in life you can, because your risk taking ability is high. Uh, you have lesser stress from family or other financial pressures. The earlier you are, or also I say sometimes people get very dejected when they lose a job, and they suddenly they feel, oh my God, the world has come to an end. No, you've got an opportunity now, because when you had a job, you had a salary coming into your bank account, and you couldn't take risk. Now you don't have a salary coming into your bank account. You have all the ability to take a risk, because you don't stand to lose that salary.
Exactly.
Sometimes I I feel pity for those youngsters who study in best of the colleges and pick up the best of the jobs, and those are actually golden handcuffs for them, because they tie them for life. When you start earning very well early in life, and then you adopt a lifestyle around that wealth, and then you shy away from taking certain risks
Yeah. Yeah.
which you would have taken. So um, things like those, I think people should keep at the back of the mind when they are defining their career. And lastly, I would say, uh, do look at global expansion as a risk diversification platform. The world is all out there for everybody to grab, whether it is Africa, whether it is Asia, whether it is Europe, US. Everywhere there is, if you have a business model, it has a scope for expansion.
Okay. That's great. All right, Doc. It's been a pleasure having you. But before I go, one thing, is there any way our viewers can follow you? You have any social media handles that they can maybe get to know more of what you have been doing and get in touch?
Yes, I think the best media to connect with me on would be my LinkedIn account, and maybe you can show that on the screen to people for them to connect with me. And I'm happy. In fact, what I have recently done is in the last week, and they can see that post on the last week, I went out and said I am going to devote the next couple of days to anyone who needs a guidance or a helping hand or a holding hand, on whether he's a university graduate, whether he's an SME, business in trouble, or someone who's looking for career development, anything. Reach out to me, and I will give you my time and speak to you on one-on-one basis, and guide you in whatever best I can. So that post of mine is on LinkedIn, and people can connect with me, and I'm happy to talk to and do whatever I can in the best of my capability.
All right. So thank you very much, Doc, for being with us. It's been a pleasure having you. So, viewers, if this is the first time you are joining us, this is another edition of the show where we had Dr. Gubiani who has had quite a fruitful discussion with us. I believe if you stay throughout the interview, you would want to come back and watch it again. Now, I just want to also leave you with one quote from Winston Churchill, who says that success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. So keep pushing, you the young entrepreneur there. My name is Prince, and I have been your host today. It's been a pleasure having you all. Thank you.